Before this year, I never had any kind of relationship with my father. Not only did he live 12 hours away, but when I was about 5, my mother and him got in a really nasty divorce, resulting in me being on her side. That is until I got a life-changing call late one Saturday night. It was from my grandpa, and he told me that my dad likely wasn't going to live through the night. My dad had a brain aneurysm that ruptured. 40% of the people who experience this don't make it, and 67% of them experience permanent neurological damage. My dad was part of the 67%, and since then it has been a real struggle. The main points I'm going to be going over today are my trip to Iowa to see him, how my life was affected by this, the symptoms and causes of brain aneurysms, and what I learned from it all. That night when I got the call about my dad, it was one of the most terrifying things I'd ever experienced. All I could think about was how I had never had a relationship with him, and how I couldn't even remember the last words that I had said to him, which terrified me because I still loved him. Right after that, me and my family had to plan an immediate trip to go to Iowa, basically to tell him goodbye, because they were not convinced that he was going to make it. During that 12-hour drive, all I could think about was if we were even going to make it on time to see him alive, and if we did make it, what I was going to say to him. I hadn't even seen him in at least 2 years. When we got to Iowa, we went straight to the hospital. When I walked up to the ICU, I saw my dad. Kind of. What I saw really wasn't my dad. It was a body that kind of looked like him, but all there was tubes and wires and blood and stitches and scars, and it was a really scary experience. After I sat there and stared at him for a good 10 minutes while he was asleep, he woke up. And for the first time since he had been at that hospital, he smiled. For that week, I basically lived in the hospital. I didn't leave unless I absolutely had to. I was convinced that the second I left, it was going to be the last time I saw or talked to him. And that absolutely terrified me. Through that time, my dad had 3 brain surgeries and 7 altogether, leading him to be neurologically disabled. The thing was, he knew what he wanted to say, and he wanted to say it, but his brain couldn't make the connection with his mouth to actually say it. So, as you can probably imagine, it was very aggravating, which led to him having many anger tantrums, which then led to him having to be tied down, which was 10 times more aggravating than anything to him. And I had to sit there and watch him go through it, which was more than hard. Like, there was nothing I could do to help him. My life has changed so much since this event, but not only in bad ways. Now I get to see my dad more than I ever did before, and I get to actually build a relationship with him. Me and him have this thing where we kind of have our own language. Like, he can't always say the words that he's thinking, so he comes up with his own words that he says, and I've learned it, and so it's really fun. Though it's sometimes a struggle because those times when we can't understand what he says, he gets really upset, which, is understandable, but it's really hard. Everything started with a brain aneurysm. Can these things be prevented? Yes, brain aneurysms can be prevented by pursuing a healthier lifestyle and limiting caffeine in your daily consumption. The causes of brain aneurysms are head injury, old age, drug, and alcohol use. The symptoms are pain above and behind the eye, double vision, and numbness in the face or body. The things I learned from this experience are not to take life for granted. I never talked to my dad for almost 2.5 years straight. I didn't call my grandparents. I ignored my uncle. These were all people that I just took for granted and knew were always going to be there if I needed them. So I took it for granted. But the thing is, anything can happen to anyone at any time. And every single time you talk to someone could be the last. So I learned not to do this, not to take things for granted, and to live my life the fullest. In conclusion, the things that I've gone over so far are my eventful trip to Iowa, how my life was affected by this event, symptoms and causes of brain aneurysms, and the lesson that I learned. Thank you.